Hello, this is Kyle, and I'm going to review the highly anticipated Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Um, I saw this film a couple days ago, and I was trying to kind of let it process and kind of feel how I feel about this film, and kind of ponder my thoughts and feelings about it before I did a review. So, anyway, I will start off by saying that I love this movie. Now, there's a lot of reviews going around. The majority, it looks like. I don't believe it's really that divisive of a film. I think it's mainly a majority of people do not like this film. I've talked to many people, and I've also seen a lot of reviews online, and most of it's leaning more toward the negative. So I think I'm more so in the minority that likes this film. um, which is great. I mean, if you don't like this movie, it's perfectly fine, perfectly reasonable. Um, and sadly, I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score of this film before I watched it, so I knew that something was amiss, that there was something that people in this film did not really care too much about. But I went in this film hoping for the best, and I gotta say, I was pretty much entertained the whole way through. Now, I guess I should say that this is gonna lean into spoilers. I'm not really gonna go into too heavily of spoilers, but I'm gonna reveal and talk about some things in this review that have not been really shown or discussed in the marketing. So, um, if you don't want to hear anything about this movie, you can just stop watching. But I mean, most of this is non-spoiler anyway. So, first off, I commend J.J. Abrams and the entire team for the direction and basically the hard work that they put into this film. A lot of reviews are saying that, oh, they didn't take enough time making this movie, it was rushed and everything. It takes a lot to make a film, and I think that especially given the backlash and reaction to The Last Jedi, I think that they had a lot to deal with. Not to even mention the fact that Carrie Fisher, the late great Carrie Fisher, was not able to shoot the scenes for this film, and they had to deal with editing her scenes from The Force Awakens into this film. I think that they had a lot on their plate, and I commend them for what they did. Um, I think that J.J. Abrams is a terrific director. However, I do believe this is probably his worst film. Now, that's not saying it's a bad film in any means, but I just feel like it isn't as focused as, say, some of his other films. It doesn't feel as fast paced as some of his other films. Doesn't have that same kinetic energy. Um, in fact, I should say it feels a bit too fast paced at times, because especially the opening of this film, the very beginning, the first 30 minutes or so is just rapid editing, cut after cut after cut, and it's these quick cuts that have these characters in one situation, and then a completely different set of characters in a completely different set of situations, one after the other. And like you have, for instance, Kylo Ren is at this one point just slaughtering a bunch of resistance forces, and then the next point is just Rey training, and then Finn and Poe and C-3PO going on their mission, and it just gets over and over and over again where like you're trying to just breathe. Now, is that a flaw of the film? I don't really think so. I think that the film itself um is trying to show you how high stakes everything is at this point and how we're heading towards the end of this galactic conflict. So I didn't think that was too big of an issue with the film. Um, Now the story of this film, basically to give a summary of the um, overall plot synopsis, is that Emperor Palpatine has somehow survived, and that's going to be one of my critiques later on. But Emperor Palpatine has somehow survived the events of Return of the Jedi, and he is back and he's at it again, trying to rid the world of Jedi and rid the world of peace, and trying to just instill his rule. And the main protagonist characters, Rey, Finn, and Poe, have to find a way to somehow stop um, what's going on and stop the First Order and Kylo Ren from bringing Palpatine's plan to its fruition. And there are secrets, and it's very, very much Star Wars. Um, and I can't really talk too much else about what this movie is without going into spoilers. But looking at the characters, though, one of my main strengths with this film, I'll start off with Daisy Ridley as Rey. She gives a great performance. I mean, I think this is the best Daisy Ridley has been in any of her films, in any of the Star Wars films. And she is just so fun to watch. You just are glued to the screen watching her, and she deals with like the insecurities and the vulnerabilities of her character. And Rey is so much more different than I feel that she was at the points of both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Whereas The Force Awakens, she was this naive girl that was just trying to find her place in the world. Leading into The Last Jedi, where she was that same naive girl trying to find the place into the world, but trying to also find her place with her newfound Force abilities and training, and learning that what you see in your heroes may not always be what you think, and your heroes may not be who you think they might be. And now we have Rey in The Rise of Skywalker, and Rey is very, very skilled. She is way more powerful than she was in both Force Awakens and Last Jedi. She's way more focused, and she is essentially the same type of character that Luke was in Return of the Jedi. But the difference in terms of Rey and I'd say Luke in terms of their progression is that Rey still feels like the same character in some ways. Where when you watch Return of the Jedi, Luke is very, very different than he was in both A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So watching Rey, you can see this is the same girl from Jakku that we met in The Force Awakens. Yet she is so much more grown. She has so much more, I think, security within her friend group. And she finally has this friend group that she trusts, which is a friend group that we have not really seen that much together in terms of the Rey Finn Poe dynamic. But you can get a sense watching this film that they've been going on many missions between The Last Jedi and this movie, and that they are bonded as a family, which is one of the themes of Star Wars from the beginning. Now, um, another great part of this film is, of course, Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. And Adam Driver is becoming one of my favorite actors. I saw him in Marriage Story recently, giving his by far his best performance. I mean, he is great in this. Like this is it's hard to say. It's um The Last Jedi and this movie in terms of Adam Driver's performance are like both here. He gives both such great performances in these films. And Kylo Ren is such a fascinating and complex and compelling character that I'm really surprised that they were able to pull off so well, given how this is Disney, and a lot of the characters in these films are very much rooted in the same types of tropes and themes as other characters from the other Star Wars films. So the fact that Kylo Ren is so much more different than these characters really makes him more unique, and he's a very flawed character. I mean, he's just as, I would say, just as flawed as Darth Vader was. I mean, people may come at me for saying something like that, but it's really the truth. And despite the prequels being my favorite Star Wars films, fight me, internet, I think that Kylo Ren is by far one of the best parts of this franchise, because this trilogy of The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker actually has an antagonist in it, compared to the prequels, where the antagonist was kind of always Palpatine, but like it was usually a different type of person in each film, whether it was Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace, whether it was Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones, and then in a way it was General Grievous, and then it was Anakin in Revenge of the Sith. So it was always kind of Palpatine in the prequels, but it wasn't really the, like, the prime focus was always kind of mixed up, which was, I thought, what made the prequels unique. But what makes this series so much, I think, what makes it so much even more unique, this trilogy, this sequel trilogy, is Kylo Ren, and how much of a great antagonist he actually is. Um, and once again, he's flawed with what has happened in the past two movies, and he has to deal with things. And he gets his helmet back, which is great. I can finally wear my Halloween costume, my Kylo Ren helmet again. But I think that what's so good about it is that when he wears this helmet, there's such a it feels so different too. Like, I really loved how when he was wearing the helmet in this film, it wasn't like in The Force Awakens where he was wearing it because he was like ashamed of who he was and who was his parents, and um kind of like he wanted to honor his grandfather. But in this film, he's wearing it as a way to hide his own wounds, um his literal wounds as in his scar on his face, but like also the fact that, I mean, the helmet itself is scarred in a very similar way like his own scar. So it's almost a metaphor. I was reading in Empire magazine how JJ was trying to elaborate on the fact that he has his own scars both physically and emotionally. So that also makes Kylo Ren in this film such a fascinating character. Another thing I loved about this film, given that I both liked Rey and Kylo Ren, is the dynamic between Rey and Kylo Ren, which is arguably my favorite part of this entire sequel trilogy. I mean, Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver, they are great actors, but they have this magic together on screen. And watching both Rey and Kylo go at it, whether they're fighting with each other, whether they're trying to help each other, they are so electric and so mesmerizing to watch. I was so entertained watching them, and I just could not take my eyes off the screen whenever they had their interaction. And if anything, I kind of wish this sequel trilogy focused even more on them and less on some of the other characters, which is going to be another negative I have of this film later on. Now, the um the one of the main themes I took from this film was it's a lot about family, and it's a lot about friendship, and how as a society we have to stick together. And if we don't stick together, then, you know, all hell breaks loose. And this is something that George Lucas used to talk about all the time when he was talking about making Star Wars, and he was talking about his ideals of the human race itself, and the fact that we are much stronger together than we are fighting each other or we are apart. And what I love about this sequel trilogy is I think that it keeps those themes very close to its heart. And even though some of the films, like The Force Awakens, which a lot of people criticize is too much like New Hope, so then that would be why the themes are very similar. But that is the themes of Star Wars, and I think that it's important that they keep those same themes. Adding some new ones is always nice, but keeping those themes of family, of being selfless, those are things that Star Wars is always supposed to be in. Um, what's the word? It's always supposed to be part of. It's always a part of Star Wars. Now, the really the interesting thing is how many different relationships are in this movie, and to me it's all about, this film is all about Rey. Like, The Force Awakens was clearly a Rey and Finn movie, Rey being like the heart of the film, but Finn being kind of like the audience, um the audience's gateway into the film. Whereas um The Last Jedi, that one of the things with The Last Jedi is that had it focused on Rey, Finn, Poe in different segments. So it was like almost focused on all of them each individually. But this film to me really clearly centered on Rey, which I loved, and I really was immersed in her story. And it was her relationship with General Leia, Organa. It was her relationship with the the trio of her, Finn, and Poe. It was her relationship with Kylo Ren. All of these relationships that Rey has in this film is so integral to the heart of the film, and I don't think this film would work, at least for me, if it was focused on the other characters instead of Rey. And given that Rey is definitely my favorite part of the film, it definitely worked, in my opinion. Now, going into some of the negatives of this movie, I have to say that one of my main issues with this film is the way that they utilize the Emperor. Now, I had fun watching him, and he was very creepy and very weird and very sinister in the way that he looked, and it was perfect for the Emperor. The way that his presence and how somewhat mysterious his presence was. But the fact that they do not explain whatsoever how he survived falling from the Death Star and causing a chain explosion reaction right before the Death Star itself blowing up, and he's somehow alive now. It just doesn't make any sense. Not that it doesn't make any sense how he survived, but it doesn't make any sense why they didn't choose to explain why he didn't survive. It almost felt like, if anything, that they didn't plan on having the Emperor in this film and just put him in last minute. And that was something that kind of bothered me because, I mean, they had the Emperor teased in the marketing since the very beginning, since the very first trailer. And I remember I was at my library watching this trailer. I was so happy hearing the Emperor. But like, the fact that they didn't explain, at least at least how he died, I mean how he survived, it just was a bit, I felt like it was a bit of a disservice to both the fans of all, like, all these new films and the past films. Um, but there was also, I would say, another critique I had with this movie is Finn, because to me, Finn was one of the best parts of The Force Awakens. And I don't know a single person, a single reviewer that did not like Finn and the character of Finn, played by the wonderful John Boyega in The Force Awakens, because he was such a great character with such depth and so many interesting and different types of things for a Star Wars character to deal with. But in this film, he's essentially him and Poe. They are essentially Rey's sidekicks, and I mean, in a way, you can look at Return of the Jedi and say to yourself, well, in Return of the Jedi, Han and Leia were also kind of like Luke's sidekicks. But the Han and Leia in Return of the Jedi had, I felt, more of a story with each other and a story for their own character. Whereas Finn and Poe, to me, I will not. Poe's a bit different. I'll get to Poe, but Finn has like this arc where, like, I was telling one of my friends that he reminded me of the arc that Kristoff had in Frozen 2, which is basically, ooh, I'm your friend, but I like you, and I'm going to try and find a way to tell you I like you, but really the thing is I don't have any other character motivations or anything else in me aside from trying to protect you. Which is why, like, a lot of people, even John Boyega himself, do not like Finn in Last Jedi. But to me, Finn was great in The Last Jedi. And Rian Johnson got that character down to a T. Because what Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi was he gave Finn, as a character, his own story. He gave him the idea of not only having to care about himself and what he wants, which is a very selfish thing, because in a way, Finn in The Force Awakens is a very selfish character. Everything he wants is for himself. He doesn't want to help the First Order because the First Order wants to kill people, but he doesn't want to do this because he doesn't agree with their ideals. Now, then you have Rey. There's the scene in The Force Awakens where he's like, Jakku, why are we going back to Jakku? He doesn't want to go back to Jakku because he doesn't want to deal with his own demons, with the First Order. He wants to get away from them. And then all of a sudden he wants to protect Rey, not for her own sake, but he wants to protect Rey because he likes Rey and he just wants to protect her. And that's really, in a way, a selfish thing. Whereas you have something that happened in Revenge of the Sith when Anakin wanted to protect Padme, but the thing is he was only really protecting Padme for his own selfish reasons. And like Yoda says, let go, you will. He did not let go of Padme. He kept her, at his side. If anyone's watching this video now and hasn't seen any of the Star Wars films, you're probably like, what is this kid talking about? So I'm sorry, but this is like a little rant. But then, anyway, back to my assessment. In The Last Jedi, Finn, as Rian Johnson, he takes that selfishness of Finn's character and makes Finn have to face that selfishness. And he has to face the fact that the only person he cares about is Rey and himself. And Rian Johnson so brilliantly puts the character of Rose as almost like a part of Finn's own conscience, trying to tell him the right things and the wrong things to do. And it's the very first interaction he has with Rose when she electrocutes him or like tases him. That's like his own conscience slapping him in the face, saying, "Get out of here." And then he deals with DJ, and he has to deal with whether he wants to join a group or something. I thought these were great parts to a character, and it just expanded upon Finn's growth. Whereas you have this film, And it's Finn back from the beginning trying to take care of Rey and saying, "Oh, I'm going to protect Rey. I'm going to do this for Rey. I'm going to do this." And I mean, I didn't see much of Finn's character in this film like I saw in The Last Jedi. So that was something that I think um, was a bit of a disappointment on its own right. Which is funny because a lot of people aren't mentioning this. One of my friends actually did mention it, which was great, but I'm not seeing many reviewers mentioning how. In fact, some are even saying Finn was better in this than The Last Jedi. But I've yet to see an argument that explains why they think Finn is better than he is in The Last Jedi. Because to me, Finn was much better in The Last Jedi than this. Um, so really, I mean, those are the two things. Score wise, I like the score in this film. There's a beautiful theme song, um, called like "We Go Together," and it's such a beautiful piece of music that John Williams composed, and he really does a great job on this. However, given that this was the final film in the Skywalker saga, I mean, is it? But like, given that it's supposed to be a culmination of all 9 films, as a fan, I did not feel that way in regards to the music because as a fan, I wanted to hear the prequel music. And given that the prequels are my favorite Star Wars films, take that internet. Again, I said it, and if anyone watches this video, the 2 views it gets, you can come hate me for my prequel loving. But since I love the prequel so much, the sequel trilogy has had and Disney has had like almost like a um adversity to the prequels themselves, and they very barely mentioned anything regarding the prequels, which I think is kind of sad because um you may not like those films, but the stories of what they were going for at least are some really ambitious and really captivating stories. And I'm just kind of sick and tired of the idea that everything has to be original trilogy, everything has to be original trilogy, when you have 20 years of fans of the prequels, like me, who do not see a lot of things from the prequels that I love about Star Wars in these new movies. So when everyone watching these films are like, everything has to be original trilogy, everything is so good about the original trilogy, and the fact that, going back to the score, that some, like, I don't really think I heard anything in regards to prequel music. And that's to me some of John Williams' best music, whether it's Duel of the Fates from The Phantom Menace, Anakin's theme from The Phantom Menace, Across the Stars from Attack of the Clones, Battle of the Heroes of Revenge of the Sith. I could go on and on. It's just, to me, that music is so good, and I think there are so many scenes in this film, whether it's alluding to Darth Vader, alluding to Anakin, that they could have easily integrated some parts of that score in there. So even though I did like the score, I was disappointed. I was very much disappointed in how it ended up not kind of referencing the prequel music, which is a very minor critique to have for this film. But um, yeah. Anyway, aside from other things, I would say I loved all the new characters. I thought all the new characters were really good. I mean, um, Carrie Russell, Zori Bliss, just give me her Black Series figure right now, because that character, I watched that thing, from the first shot she was in. I was like, oh my god! Like, give me a Disney Plus show, give me a video game, give me a canon novel, give me everything on Zori Bliss. And like looking back on it, it's like when the film ended, they didn't really give her as much to do as it looked like she was gonna get, but like I still love seeing this character. Her costume was badass. Her like whole helmet design was so awesome. She looked like Daft Punk. Um, I mean, it was such a great, I thought, character and like her relationship with Poe, which also made Poe, I think, much better than Finn in this film because it gave him a bit of a new type of angle. Um, and the whole bickering between a joke about him being a spice runner. Um, but like, I love Zori Bliss. And then I thought that Jana, her character name, I thought she was a really good character. However, she came in very late in the film, in my opinion. I don't really know, like, Star Wars marketing is so strange that you begin to wonder, like, who is marketing these movies, because I mean Jana was all over the marketing for this. Naomi Aki, which she's a phenomenal actress. I'd love to see more of what she has to do, but like she was doing press and everything. But like, I mean, her and Carrie Russell, they're not in this movie that much. I mean, I guess Jana is in it maybe more than Carrie Russell, but like, I don't know. It's that's one of my critiques with the sequel trilogy too, and the fact that they keep on adding new characters in every film, and it's like the original trilogy and the prequel, they kept their characters the same most of the time. So by the time you ended on the third film of the trilogy, whether it was Return of the Jedi or Revenge of the Sith, um, it was always, to me, it was always the same characters. It was always Han, Leia, Luke, or Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme, and of course in I keep wanting to say Revenge of the Jedi. In Return of the Jedi, you had Mon Mothma, you had Admiral Akbar, you had Nine Nub, but like you didn't have those characters, you know, oh my god, like they're new characters. They're just new characters facilitated by the story. But like in terms of these movies, you have characters like Rose, you have characters like DJ, Admiral Hodo, um, um, was there any more characters in The Last Jedi? I don't remember. Um, then you have Jana, you have Zori Bliss, you have Babu Frick, who's a great character and it was hilarious. But you had all these new characters, and it's like if you take them away, I wonder if the focus being more on say Finn and Poe and Rey, if it would have even helped it more. But of course Billy D came back as Lando and he was great. And I was so happy too because given that we haven't seen Billy D in a while, um, is he still the Lando that he still says he still is? And sure enough, he absolutely is. And he still had that same charm and that swagger. And I think, in my opinion, um, well, I mean, it's hard to say. I was gonna say like I thought he was in a way somewhat even better than say Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford were, but I wouldn't say that. I think they all were great, and they all had their characters. And Carrie Fisher, I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to critique her in this movie because she didn't even film these scenes for this film. These are essentially deleted scenes that they cut out. So um you're essentially reviewing and critiquing a performance of a deleted scene. So which they took out for a reason. So I don't know. I mean, she was good in this. But I think they did a great job putting her in there. It was very jarring for me though because I knew that she wasn't really there, so it felt very jarring to watch. Maybe second viewing, hopefully, maybe it won't be as jarring. Um, but I thought what I really loved though was the fact that they had her relationship with Rey as one of the main parts of this film that you could clearly see that was what they planned originally for this film. They originally planned for Leia to have a big role. She was going to be the the main role of this film. and sadly she passed, so they couldn't do that, and I think they were able to find a way to work around it. Now, I don't think you can say how they could have done a better job. I don't think for a second you could have recast her. I think that is an inane and an absolutely ridiculous idea. Because to me, Carrie Fisher is Leia, and it's not like we've seen another actress on screen play Leia aside from the actress that played her in Rogue One using this motion capture, but we have not seen a live action other than Carrie Fisher. And given that it's Leia's last film, it would be so strange to see another actress play that role. And I don't think any actress in Hollywood, not Meryl Streep, no one would even feel like they would want to take up that mantle. So to recast her is just, to me, just a ridiculous idea. So I'm glad they didn't do that, and it's a good thing that I think they just didn't write her out of the movie or write her, because I think it was that relationship between her and Rey and her and Kylo that I think really, you know, kept you um at at like I felt like kept the film in its own direction, and it made it feel a bit different than the others because we have not seen Leia take this role. And what's actually interesting as I'm thinking about it now was that The Force Awakens Leia was very standard. She was just, the general calling the shots and stuff. But The Last Jedi, you started to see a bit of a different Leia, a Leia that was like the a mother figure, and she was also a teacher trying to try and to tell Poe what he should and shouldn't do. And she was there trying to. She was like the guiding force. She guided all these characters, like Poe and Finn, and even Rey at the very end when she says, "We have all we need." That I'm starting. I'm starting to think of this thing right now. That I think that was a great progression of her character in The Rise of Skywalker into this teacher. And a lot of people are saying, a lot of these critics are saying, like, oh, J.J. Abrams completely threw out what Rian Johnson did. I kind of disagree on that because to me, I think that J.J. Abrams, not only did he, um, not only did J.J. Abrams um, continue the relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey from The Last Jedi, because that relationship really wasn't there as much in The Force Awakens. It was really more in The Last Jedi. And he also, like, I think continued Leia's story through these arcs. Yeah, I think, I mean, of course he did, I guess you could say some jabs at The Last Jedi, but I don't know. I mean, these are professionals. I don't think they would be that cruel, but I don't know. I don't work in Hollywood. So, yet. So I don't know, how to, I don't know how it works between those. But, anyway, I would give The Rise of Skywalker a 9 out of 10. That's what I gave it when I walked out of the theater, and I'm still sticking to it. One of the also main reasons is it made me feel as satisfied as a Star Wars fan as I could be. Given how this year has basically been my inner search for um, the Phantom Menace and how it relates to me in various ways and fashions, and how I'm connected to that film, given that I was born in the same year that movie came out. But Star Wars this year, I've just made this year about me trying to understand Star Wars and what it not only means to the world, what it means to me, but what it means as like a almost um concrete fact of our existence. So I think The Rise of Skywalker did a great job. It's not the best Star Wars movie at all. I actually believe that I don't know. Is it my least favorite Star Wars film? I don't know. Return of the Jedi. I watched The Last Jedi a couple days ago, and I think that The Last Jedi is definitely it's shot up there. It used to be my least favorite Star Wars film, but I think I like it more than Return of the Jedi. But it's we'll see. I'll see how it goes. I'll see how I feel about this film as time goes on. But anyway, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I would give it an A. I would give it out of 5 stars. I would give it a 4. Wait, now out of 4 stars, I would give it a 3.5. So, thank you for watching this review. I recommend everyone see Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And if you don't like what I said about um, the prequels, about Rey, about Kylo Ren, about Return of the Jedi, about The Last Jedi, about anything that you don't like about Star Wars, then please send me a comment below because I want to see as many comments as I can about how I'm wrong. So I will please send me as many mean comments. If you have any issues with Rey being a Mary Sue, if you have any issues with the lack of men in this movie, um, the lack of, you know, anything that you have an issue with this film that does not have any purpose being mentioned because it's an idiotic thing to say, please put it down below in the comment section because I'd love to see how creative some people can be. Anyway, I hope all of you enjoy it. If you don't like it, it's fine. Um, all film is subjective, but just be nice to everybody and do not ever make fun of somebody or hurt somebody because of what they like. So, or what they hate. Don't get mad at someone that doesn't like something. So anyway, I think that will be it, and I only have to leave this and end this video by saying, may the force be with you.